Well, good morning, everybody. How are you? Good morning. I want to start by looking back 367 days ago. Americans held their breath when they heard the news of the attempted assassination of President Trump. That bullet threatened more than just one man. It threatened our entire nation. If President Trump didn't survive, just think about this for a minute. Would border crossings be at an all-time low? Would Iran not have a nuclear weapon? Would Treasury have received an unexpected surplus as the president levels the playing field through his tariff negotiations? Would the stock market be at an all-time high? I doubt it. Now, as we reflect upon that day, we are reminded of just how far we've come since then and how much more we have to achieve. We are forever grateful that God saved America's fighter in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now, the last time the House Republicans were in Washington, we kept our promises. Despite all the doubts, House Republicans delivered on the one big, beautiful bill, and we got it to President Trump's desk, of which he signed on July 4th. This transformational law will benefit all Americans, from Michigan to Louisiana and from Florida to California. House Republicans kept our promises to cut taxes, no taxes on tips, no tax on overtime, and give people more of their Social Security benefits with no taxes on their Social Security. We lifted financial burdens off the backs of American families like waitresses and law enforcement officers. And House Republicans kept our promise to secure the border by finishing the wall. We restored safety and security in our communities. We kept our promise to unleash American energy. And we strengthened Medicaid for those who need it most, expanded health saving accounts, and created a rural hospital fund. Whether it's lower gas prices, lower taxes, or more jobs, there's something in the one big, beautiful bill to help every single American. Compare that to Democrats who voted to raise every American's taxes. And you can be sure that every American will hear about this from members of Congress. House Republicans will be spreading the news of the big historic wins in the one big beautiful bill. We've already kicked things off at our media row, and I hope that you'll join us there. And now I will turn it over to one of my newest colleagues, freshman Representative Jimmy Petronas of Florida. And with him, he will bring a guest who directly benefits from the one big, beautiful bill. So you can take it from here.
Thank you, Chair.
You are welcome. All right, let me get my pencil and get it.
Gotcha. You're a staffer too. Good morning. Thank you, Speaker Johnson, Majority Leader Scalise, Whip Emmer, and Chair McLean for your leadership on passing the one big, beautiful bill. As a small business owner, I was in the restaurant business for 36 years of my life, and it's really impactful what this legislation is going to ultimately do. I think there's one thing that the President understands. He understands the service industry. And as somebody who has run that industry for the last 36 years, there's a challenge we've had ever since COVID, and that has been just the efforts that we have struggled to try to find an engagement and enthusiasm back in the workforce. I think the President has a secret power, and that secret power is understanding how to grow businesses. With the no tax on tips, we're looking at a $1,300, average $1,300 per service industry employee that is going to have new money in their pocket. That will either be servicing debt, taking care of their family, providing for their family, or just, you know what, just getting to spend their money instead of Washington, D.C. With the no tax on overtime, same thing. We're looking about $1,300. That's going to impact that hourly worker. You think about the enthusiasm that's going to have in bringing people back into the workforce or getting people more enthused about those industries where they know overtime and tips are an engagement of how they get paid. I'm excited But now I think about my mom. When you talk about no tax on seniors, they're going to be able to hold on to as much as $6,000 in new deductions back in their pocket to offset the costs and the inflations that have been dealt to them by the Biden administration. We're turning this country around one step after the other. And I tell people all the time, it's not a sprint, it's a march. This is why it was so important. We worked so hard to get this bill across the finish line. The men and women up here worked through the night, as we knew at the end of the day, the citizens of the United States spends their money better than Washington, D.C. does. And this is a testament as we're making sure they get to keep more of their money. What I also get excited about is the money that has been committed to air traffic control, as those challenges that we have faced over the last couple of years have been unfortunate. And we know that we've got an aging infrastructure system. It's sad that every single Democrat that serves in that building across the street voted against putting $12 billion back into improving our air traffic control system. When you look at those dollars and upgrading that aging infrastructure, but more importantly, it's the backbone of economic commerce in our country. And you've got to make those investments. And sometimes it may not be sexy, but by God, the citizens of our country deserve state-of-the-art technology to have that peace of mind when they're traveling and doing business in our country. And lastly, is I'm so excited as a member of Congress that has 5 installations in this district, whether it's Eglin, Herbert Field, NAS Pensacola, NAS Whiting, Corey Station, or Duke Field. These installations are going to benefit from the One Big Beautiful Bill. As we have seen historic levels, we have exceeded every recruiting goal already now for the entire year. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have created a new enthusiasm in our United States military. $9 billion to improve the quality of life for our service members. $20 billion to bolster munition production. $12 billion to modernize our nuclear arsenal, and over $5 billion to secure our border. These are game changers, but it also creates an enthusiasm that lets our servicemen and women know they're appreciated, taking care of our veterans. And I'm very excited that means taking care of Florida Congressional District 1. Thank you to the Speaker and his entire team for making this happen. And I want to introduce Frank Patty. Frank Patty and his family, they're a multi-generational difference maker in Northwest Florida, whether it be in their renowned, world-famous fishing market. They have got a seafood market there in Pensacola that whenever you walk in, it's like a circus. It is people are going in every different direction, but it's quality seafood from the Gulf of America and all over the United States as they come in to receive their produce. And then what happened is, as they were running their own fishing fleets, they realized they had to fix the boats that they were using. So what they do, they decided to build their own shipyard. So whether it be running their own seafood market, fixing their own ships, or building the next generation of ships that are taking care of the Army Corps of Engineers or just the private sector, this family has made a commitment, and it's exciting to have them up here being a part of what the Big Beautiful Bill means to their family and their ability to grow their economy in not just Northwest Florida, but in our country. Frank.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you so much. Well, appreciate that so much. My name is Frank Patty Jr. I am an owner-operator at Patty Marine Enterprises and Joe Patty Seafood. We are based in Pensacola, Florida. First, I'd like to thank Speaker Mike Johnson and Majority Leader Steve Scalise and Majority Whip Tom Emer and Chairman Lisa McLean. Thank you. And of course, my buddy Jimmy. It is an honor to speak today from our nation's capital with this incredible team that you have here and speak about this positive impacts of the One Big Beautiful Bill. My daughter Mandy and I are very proud of our family business. My grandparents are both born in Sicily, 10 miles apart from each other, and met for the first time in Pensacola. And so how this happened is really amazing, because meeting in Pensacola, my grandfather was running snapper smacks down to Campeche. He says, you gonna start a business? I'm not raising this family by myself. She says, what are you gonna do? You're gonna get a boat, we're gonna sell bait off the front porch. So here we are 97 years later. 94 years later, I'm sorry. 94 years later, it's a thriving business with high volume, serves thousands of people a day. And then we got into business to build our own fleet. So we set up a shipyard in the parking lot, rolled the first vessels in on wooden logs, very meager beginnings. and built our own fleet, operated our own fleet, sold our own product. Of course, we started building for everybody. So the fishing vessels from Dutch Harbor to Maine, we built the very first licensed gambling boat in the country. We built the largest gambling boat in the country, did a lot of vessels for the Army Corps of Engineers. Matter of fact, we built more vessels for the Army in a 20-year span than any other shipyard, and got an award from the Corps for outstanding civilian service, and then other significant vessel awards. We are very blessed with all our work. But of course, we want to talk about safety too, because we are very big on safety, and our shipyard, the last 4 national safety awards we got, the last 2 were the best small shipyard in the country, and that was 2 years in a row. So we're very blessed for our great team that we have, and the family that we were blessed with, and my daughter Mandy, who and my son, and my grandparents, and everybody, that how far we've come. So for our shipyard employees and our seafood employees, the no tax and overtime means more take-home pay, which reflects in greater retention and happier families. Thank you. And for our shipyard operations, the full deductibility of the new construction and the 100% immediate expensing of equipment, and the extension of the Trump tax cuts allows us to reinvest directly into our workforce, our facilities, and grow our future. Even more exciting is the potential for maritime prosperity zones, designating coastal working waterfronts like ours in Pensacola, and prioritizing development areas which will supercharge innovation, attract more skilled labor, and secure American domestic shipbuilding capabilities. With this one big beautiful bill and the prosperity zones together for shipyards like ours, will revitalize the industry with real wage increases and the manufacturing boost needed to meet the maritime demands of the defense and commercial domestic needs. We are very grateful for the leadership of President Trump and this incredible team you have here working hard for the American workers, the American manufacturers, and the small businesses like ours located in Pensacola on the great Gulf of America. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Great work. Thanks for being here.
Thank
Patty's. This week, we are delivering on President Trump's promise to make America the crypto capital of the world. For too long, digital asset innovation in this country has been stifled by ambiguous rules, instability, and the Biden administration's anti-crypto crusade. Now we have the opportunity to pass a comprehensive, nonpartisan digital asset legislation that will unlock the next era of American innovation, protect consumers, and strengthen the U.S. dollar. Where ambiguity and unclear jurisdiction have stifled blockchain innovation, the Clarity Act will create a much-needed regulatory framework for the digital asset marketplace. Doing this not only gives builders and firms the rules of the road, it also ensures consumers are protected against fraud and bad actors. And the Senate's Genius Act will peg stablecoins to a stable currency, like the U.S. dollar, opening the door for the United States to lead the world in digital finance. The House will also vote on our anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, which bans the Fed from issuing a central bank currency. Under the Biden administration, financial surveillance gained a foothold in the United States as they explored the creation of a central bank digital currency. CBDCs are already used by governments like the Chinese Communist Party to monitor, track, and judge the financial actions of its citizens. A CBDC would be nothing more than a surveillance tool that could threaten our very way of life. We can't let that happen. These 3 nonpartisan bills are the culmination of years of work in Congress, and especially in the House. Together, they're going to launch America to the top of the digital asset innovation world and fulfill our promise of making America the crypto capital of the world. We've waited long enough. We must take hold of this opportunity now. This is the week. And with that, I turn it over to our leader.
Thank you, Whip.
Talking about innovation.
We are not done innovating, and we're not done winning. We are just getting started. This House majority keeps delivering for the American people. I know nobody in this room did, but there were some who doubted whether we could pull off passing the one big beautiful bill. There were days when, maybe more members than we could lose were out there saying maybe they might not vote for the bill. But this leadership team, led by our speaker, and especially led by our coach, you think about Donald Trump and the work that he's done to get this country back on track. Donald Trump was all in it, making sure that the one big beautiful bill passed. He made phone calls that he needed to make. He was directly involved in helping usher that bill to his desk. And then we were all there for that great signing on July 4th in the White House to celebrate what's going to be a great American comeback story to get this country back on track. And it's great to welcome the Patties here. Great family business, multi-generational business, almost 100 years. I'll come see y'all if Patronus will have me for the 100-year celebration of what is part of the American dream. What they described, come to this country legally. Let's help start a business. We've got to figure out how to make ends meet. So let's meet demands and help in our community. And then as that demand was met, they found other needs and they grew into a maritime company, and they just keep serving the great community of Pensacola and creating jobs. And this bill delivers for so many working families in America. If you just spent all of your days listening to the lies told by the Democrats, you would be living in a parallel universe, because they're rooting against the success of this bill, which means they're rooting against the success of working families across America. The good news is we, as House Republicans, focused on how to deliver wins for the families who have been struggling because of those failed Democrat policies, because of what the far left has done to increase inflation, increased interest rates, make it harder for the waiter or waitress to get by working 2 shifts at a diner. Well, now they don't have to pay tax on tips. And as Democrats are lying about billionaires, what they actually did was vote against those waiters and waitresses. They voted against those shift workers at the Patty shipyard who are working overtime and are wondering how much time they're spending away from their family, and they have to pay so much in taxes. Well, now they won't anymore. They're going to have $1,700 more every year in their pockets to go and maybe take a family vacation, to put away for their college, for their kids. And every Democrat voted against that. How are they going to reconcile that when they fan across America? And I know Akeem is taking this traveling roadshow around the country to try to keep lying about the bill. The problem is he is flying in the face of Americans who know how good this bill is going to be for them. As he's lying about billionaires, every senior citizen who gets a benefit from this bill is saying, wait a minute, why'd you vote against a $6,000 deduction for me? That's what every Democrat did. And so we're talking about the wins in this bill that a lot of people don't know about. We of course know about lower rates for everybody. Every Democrat voted to raise rates on everybody. I'm curious to see, as they're traveling around the country, will they answer the question, will Hakeem and all of his friends pay the higher tax rate that they voted to impose on every American family? They actually did that. They voted to raise every American's taxes. But now that the bill's passed, are they going to be hypocritical and take the lower rate? Or well, they can actually send more money in. They believe in taking more of your money, but they can send in more of their money. Will they do that and pay that higher rate that they voted to impose on everybody? I think probably not, but it's a fair question to ask. But in the meantime, all of those families who are going to benefit, a air traffic control system, as Congressman Patronus just talked about. We saw the floppy disks are running airports like in LaGuardia, floppy disk drives. I'm a computer science major. I learned in the 80s how to program a computer on floppy disks. We got rid of the floppy disks in the 90s. They're still running airports off of that old technology. And President Trump and Sean Duffy, who are doing such a great job, said, we're not going to look the other way like Biden did and Buttigieg did for 4 years. We're going to modernize this great system so that when people get on an airplane, they have the confidence that that air traffic control system at their airport and the airport they're going to land at are now run off of modern 21st century technology, not 1980s technology. You think about school choice. First time ever the federal government passed a school choice bill to give families an option now. And it's available to every state. States have the ability to opt in. Gavin Newsom likes attacking people who go visit his state. He likes attacking the millions of people who leave his state because he's such a failed leader. I'm wondering, is Gavin Newsom going to stand in front of the schoolhouse steps and deny the ability for every low-income family in the state of California the ability to send their kid to the school of their choice if the local school is failing those kids? That's a dilemma now that people like Gavin Newsom will have to face. Will he bow to the teachers' unions and tell those low-income families, no, your kid's got to stay in a failing school, or will he take advantage of the great opportunity presented in this one big beautiful bill to allow those low-income families to send their kids to any school, to have the opportunity to seek the American dream like every kid in this country deserves? That's in this bill. President Trump's Golden Dome, so many other great things, but we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to pass great digital currency legislation this week to continue modernizing our laws to keep up with the technology of today. We're going to pass the DoD appropriations bill this week to make sure that our men and women in uniform at all those great military bases that are in Congressman Petronis and so many other districts will be able to have the ability to keep up, to keep recruiting, to keep being the best and brightest and strongest fighting force in the world. That's what we're going to do this week. We're going to keep delivering. We're going to keep fighting for those families who have been left behind for way too long. Those days are no longer. President Trump is in the White House. Republicans are running Congress. We're getting things done and we're delivering results for hardworking families. And the man who never allows failure, who has said, no, we are not going to accept, even when the numbers don't look right, we're going to figure out a way to get it done, and we got it done because we've got a strong, bold leader as our Speaker, Mike Johnson.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you all for being here. Thank this great leadership team. Thank you, Congressman Jimmy Petronis, who is representing Florida's Panhandle so well. So grateful to have the Patty family, Frank and Mandy, and we have a lot in common, actually. My grandfather's from Sicily as well. His name was Nunzio Messina, okay? They went a little further west in the Gulf. Yeah, okay, right. I could have been somebody. I could have been Vinnie Messina. I got Mike Johnson instead. It's so boring. But anyway, I love my father's side of the family as well. But here we are. Grateful that you're here. You all are going to see us highlighting real hardworking Americans for the foreseeable future, because the One Big Beautiful Bill helps everybody. And you're going to hear their stories, and you're going to hear what it means to them and what it means to their employees in this case, what it means to the people who have really been struggling to pay the bills. The last 4 years was a disaster under the Biden-Harris Democrat big government socialist policies, and now we're getting back to American principles. America's back, and everybody's going to benefit from it. I want to talk to you about that a little bit, but just first, I mean, it's appropriate for us to note it was 1 year ago Sunday that on that field in Butler, Pennsylvania, that an assassin nearly took the life of President Trump. And we can't talk about it too much because it was a turning point in American history. It could have gone the wrong way. I mean, if that assassin's bullet missed just an inch to the right, or if President Trump would have turned his head just a millisecond later, he would have died on that stage, and this country would have come apart at the seams. But now, because of all this recent success and the president's success, it's easy to forget that just 12 months ago, President Trump was the most vilified politician, arguably, in the history of the country. Democrats spent years persecuting him on all fronts. They impeached him twice. Social media platforms removed his ability to communicate with his supporters. Armed FBI agents raided his home. Democrat judges and prosecutors bent the law to arrest him, and multiple assassins tried to kill him. But God miraculously spared the president's life. I think it's undeniable, and he did it for an obvious purpose. And his presidency and his life are the fruits of divine providence, and he points that out obviously now all the time, and he's right to do so. As President Trump has lived since, with the acknowledgement every day since, he has acknowledged that each new day isn't guaranteed to us. It isn't to any of us, and that's why we're not wasting any time. It's why he remains so strong and resilient. It's why we have such a sense of urgency. President Trump took a bullet to his head. He got up shortly thereafter. He pleaded with the crowd to fight, and then he went on to win a historic election less than 4 months later. America's changed because he survived that day. Think about everything that we've been able to accomplish, and just over the last few weeks. I recounted this on the floor in the speech right after Hakeem finished his endless 8.5-hour, parade of lies. I said it takes a lot longer to build a lie than it does to tell the simple truth, and the truth is on our side. And as John Adams said, facts are stubborn things. We can't wait to talk about the facts, about the big, beautiful bill over this next year and a half or so till the election. But think about everything we've accomplished just the last few weeks. Gas prices hit a 4-year low. The last 4 jobs reports exceeded expectations. The stock market is reaching record highs. We have the lowest monthly border encounters in the history of the United States. Our NATO partners committed to spending 5%, not 2% of their GDP on national defense. We brokered multiple peace agreements and struck many more trade deals, more to come, significantly damaged Iran's nuclear program, and on July 4th, we did sign the One Big Beautiful Bill. The President signed it into law. It's the most consequential, transformational legislation ever considered in our lifetimes, and we got it done because the Republican Party delivered on the promises we made to the American people. And the President did as well. That list that I just mentioned barely scratches the surface. President Trump has promised the most, and has delivered now, the most successful first 6 months of any president in the modern era, and many argue probably in the history of this great nation. And he's shown no signs of stopping. We won't. Every citizen in every zip code in every pocket of America will benefit from the Big Beautiful Bill. Just like the Patties explained, you'll hear story after story in the weeks ahead. Last week, my office sent a survey to our constituents. I serve Louisiana's 4th Congressional District, and we sent around a survey to Louisiana families, knowing that they're going to save thousands of dollars now because of the vote that we took on July 3rd. We asked them, how would you use the extra money? And here's some of the responses. James said he's going to use the savings to open a Roth IRA for his family. Janice is an 80-year-old widow. She said she's going to use the savings for much-needed repairs to her home. Whitney is in a retirement home. She's going to utilize the savings to help pay rent. Pamela is grateful for the increased standard deduction and will likely add these savings to a rainy day fund for future expenses. Another constituent named James said he doesn't even want the relief. He said he's going to spend his thousands. He'd like to send it back to us to, quote, use for more plane tickets for people heading back south of the border wall. Okay? All right? That's a real response. All right? So, yeah. So many of my constituents said they would use their savings on things like basic needs and bills and debt payment and transportation and home repairs and helping family members and adding to their emergency funds, or some of them taking a well-deserved vacation. You know what? As Jimmy said earlier, it's their money. It's not the government's money, and we're delighted to give it back to them. That's the beauty of the One Big Beautiful Bill, and you can spend it however you please. I know the stories are similar in the other 434 congressional districts across this country. Despite the Democrats' repeated lies about the bill, lower and middle income Americans are going to reap the greatest benefit. Individuals making less than $50,000 per year will receive the largest benefit from the tax cuts. Tipped and overtime workers will see no taxes on those wages. Take-home pay for the typical hardworking American family will increase by over $10,000 a year, and over 50 million seniors will now pay no taxes on their Social Security. This is real. The bill was written of, by, and for the American people. And with President Trump's signature on Independence Day, the American people will finally begin to feel relief. I'll just end with this statement and we'll take some questions. America First is no longer an agenda. It is now the law of the land. And that's what the people voted on last November to deliver, and we did it in less than half a year. So I'll take a few questions. Front row.
First of all, Speaker Benny Messina would have been great.
Hey.
So regarding yesterday's Supreme Court order on the Education Department, you've previously been asked whether Congress will assert its constitutional authority and pass legislation closing the department, which of course was created by act of Congress. When exactly does that moment arrive? Does the President having, quote, ultimate authority over the Education Department, as was Secretary McMahon's interpretation of the order, not conflict with Congress's legal and constitutional power? At what point does this become a separation of powers conflict?
It may not surprise you. I haven't had a chance to digest the Supreme Court opinion from yesterday, whenever it was. Been a little busy, but we'll look into that. I'm a constitutional law attorney. I'm a jealous guardian of Article I authority, but I also know that for decades, the Department of Education, since its creation, the Department of Education has been wielded by the executive branch. I think that was the intent of Congress, as I understood it back then. We have a large say in that, but we're going to coordinate that with the White House, where I'm not going to get in front of the President. He has a vision on how to reform education at the federal level. Secretary McMahon has done an extraordinary job thus far, and we're going to follow their cues on how to do that. If we see that the separation of powers is being breached in some way, we'll act, but I haven't seen that yet. So, yeah.
Mr. Speaker, your office has told me the holdup on Congress taking up disaster aid for California is that you're waiting for the White House to send an official request. The President has indicated no interest in doing so, in part because of his tiff beef with Gavin Newsom, whatever you want to call it. Will you commit to including California in any disaster aid package passed out of the House, whether it be Texas, the Carolinas, regardless of the president's feelings about California?
Well, first of all, we wouldn't know how much to commit because there's a process that this goes through. The White House, in every administration and every previous Congress, the White House takes the request of the state. After the calculations have been done, the assessments, there's a multi-step process to this. They take that, they send the request to Congress, and then Congress it goes through regular order and acts upon the request. We just haven't had that in California yet for whatever reason. Gavin Newsom seems to enjoy trying to stick his thumb in the eye of the White House and the Congress, which seems to be counter-purpose if he is requesting relief. Look, we're going to do the right thing at the end of the day. We'll take care of the American people. We'll take care of our federal responsibilities. But we've not seen the calculation nor the formal request yet, and I'm going to act upon it until we do.
The formal request was sent to your office in February, sir.
I would get the request from the White House and the executive branch. That's how this works. We're going to follow the rules.
Mr. Speaker, what's the consternation among House Republicans about possible changes to the rescissions bill in the Senate, and what that would be like in terms of timing as you're up against this deadline on Friday?
Yeah, the Friday deadline looms. We're encouraging our Senate partners over there to get the job done and to pass it as is. That's what we did. It reflects the intention and the view of the House. This in our view was low-hanging fruit. This rescission package is, you're talking about funding for USAID, the egregious abuses that the DOJ analysis and audits uncovered. We've got to claw that back. The American people, everybody demands that. We can't fund transgender operas in Peru with U.S. taxpayer dollars, right? So come on. The NPR and PBS components this is, in our view, the misuse of taxpayer dollars. They're biased reporting. They're not objective. They pretend to be so. They have for a long time. And the people don't need to fund that. I mean, we're in an age of, you all know, you work in the industry. I mean, media is so multifaceted now. There's so many avenues and areas for information. And while at its origination, NPR and PBS might have made some sense, and maybe it does now, but it shouldn't be subsidized by taxpayers. So these are simple questions to answer for us. The House has acted appropriately, and I hope the Senate will do the same. I've urged them, as I always do, to please keep the product unamended because we have a narrow margin and we got to pass it. But we're going to process whatever they send us whenever they send us, and I'm hopeful that it'll be soon.
What's this say about the mission if you're unable, though, to pass those things? So, I mean, the idea that, Republicans talk about cutting the spending, and if there's a conflict, then you can't get it done through that deadline?
I don't accept defeat, Chad, so we'll see what happens. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Homeland Security Committee Chair Mark Green will be leaving on the 20th. Have you talked to any of the contenders and who can succeed him? How much do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I've talked to all of them, and we have an embarrassment of riches in the House Republican Conference. We have very highly qualified people who are willing to step up. They're all highly respected among their peers, so it'll be quite a horse race there. And I'm not going to put my thumb on the scale and try to influence that one way or the other. We have a process here. We respect the process, and that we have a steering committee that's composed of leaders and representatives from across the conference, and they'll hear the presentations of the candidates, and then they'll make the due decision. But it's going to be a tough race because there's some tough people. Great men who step forward, and we'll see how it shakes out. So thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Largest deficit reduction in 30 years when it actually explodes the deficit by $4 trillion. Gabe Evans, on the other hand, has twisted himself into knots, claiming that there are no Medicaid cuts because technically healthcare spending will continue to rise. He's hoping that the 1 in 3 voters in Colorado who he represents won't notice losing their healthcare. Derek Van Orden wants his voters to believe that somehow he managed to secure more money for Badger Care, even though he voted for $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, prompting the governor of Wisconsin to call him out for lying. Here's the truth. Republicans own the healthcare crisis that they've created. People will get sick. Hospitals will close, like we've seen in places like Curtis, Nebraska, and nursing homes will shut down. And they're doing all of this so they can give billionaires tax breaks and make private jets fully tax deductible. They're the same rich and well-connected elites that they're protecting by keeping the Epstein files under lock and key after campaigning to release them. It's shameful, and House Democrats will make sure that they are held accountable. Now I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. Donald Trump, when he campaigned, promised on day one he would end inflation and lower costs. Donald Trump lied to the American people because we now know that inflation has continued to increase under his policies and that of Republicans. The most recent inflation report shows that inflation increased to 2.7% above expectations, and core CPI increased to 2.9%. We call on Trump and Republicans to focus on lowering costs instead of things like the big ugly bill that are taking millions of people off healthcare. I've also noticed that there's been an uptick in activity around the Epstein files recently. I just want to remind the American people that in February of this year, Attorney General Pam Bondi acknowledged the existence of Jeffrey Epstein's client list. In fact, she said that Jeffrey Epstein's client list is, quote, sitting on my desk right now. Where is that client list? What is Attorney General Pam Bondi hiding? She needs to release the Epstein files as soon as possible. I talked about the Epstein files under the Biden administration. I'm talking about it under the Trump administration. This is a case of the powerful protecting the powerful. We need to have those files released. I also note that the Epstein files that have already been released show that Trump is all over the files. He's in multiple pictures with Jeffrey Epstein. There's multiple videos of Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. There are plane logs of Trump on Epstein's plane. There are statements by Trump about Epstein. There are court pleadings of alleged victims of Epstein naming Trump. So we need to have these Epstein files released. I also want to talk a little bit about Ukraine. The only way we get Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table is to defeat Russian troops on the battlefield. I support President Trump's decision to send Patriot missiles to Ukraine. I support President Trump's decision to say that he's going to backfill Europe's military equipment when Europe sends military equipment to Ukraine. And that is how we're going to get Putin to the negotiating table, by letting Putin know that he cannot win this war. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lieu. Questions? Mariana?
Thank you. A group of bipartisan Republicans, Democrats are reintroducing the Dignity Act, a bipartisan bill. A couple of years ago, apparently it's more narrow and more tailored to what's been happening as of late. I know the details of the little, but is this an opportunity for Democrats to possibly force a discharge petition on an issue that is bipartisan? It seems like there's been some Republicans that was working with the White House to try to get this.
You know, when Stephen Miller, and I appreciate the question, when Stephen Miller and Tom Homan are running your immigration policy, it's going to be pretty difficult to find common ground. I appreciate our members' willingness to engage with their Republican colleagues, and I appreciate anyone who takes that spirit of bipartisanship and wanting to solve an issue that we have let lapse for 30 years without a solution, leaving millions of people in limbo. And I've been a part of efforts both in the Democratic caucus as well as in the Congress in order to support pathways for dreamers particularly. But it's a little hard to believe our House Republican colleagues who wrote a lot of letters saying that they didn't want the Latino population impacted by Medicaid cuts, and then they vote for that same bill that attacks Medicaid and will cut Medicaid for millions of Latinos across the country. So it's a little difficult. And right now we want to see the details of the bill. I understand that it has narrowed, though, and that's unfortunate when a vast majority of Americans, including recent polling that came out in the last week, show that Americans, including Republicans, believe in broadening a path to citizenship for people who play by the rules, who pass a background check, who are working in this country. That's what we need to do. So we don't need to come backwards on ways to citizenship. We need to expand those. And so that would be my concern. And Democratic caucus efforts will include pathways to citizenship for people who are playing by the rules, living here, paying taxes, and trying to provide the American dream and want to be part of the fabric of this country. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of your members have criticized the Reconciliation Act for backloading a lot of the SNAP cuts, the Medicaid cuts, till after the midterms. I'm curious, as you all go into your districts and you all try to message against this bill, does the way that the bill is constructed pose any challenges to House Democrats, and how you're talking about the harmful impact of the bill when folks may not feel it until after the next election?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, and this is an honest conversation that we need to have back home. I had a town hall last night virtually where we talked about this. Met with constituents last week where we talked about this as well. We just need to be clear-eyed and tell our constituents what the impacts will be. But we also are joined by validators. We're joined by local hospitals and the National Hospital Associations and nursing homes and those folks who are going to be impacted by this. So this isn't just us as members of Congress saying danger is coming. There's a lot of folks standing with us saying, yes, danger is coming. This is how they're going to do it. This is how they're going to unwind Medicaid for 17 million people, impacting 17 million people and their health insurance coverage. So we need to be honest and clear about what the bill does. But we're also going to be very mindful of outside pressures. There will be private health insurance, right, that will have to set rates, and those rate structures will likely have to increase. And so this is something that's going to affect folks not just on Medicaid, but on private health insurance. And that could be before the implementation, the full implementation of the bill, which you mentioned, starting in October on the Medicaid side, October of next year and continuing into 27. So Republicans might think that they're being, cute by half. We have to be clear-eyed and honest and have the community validators there to say, no, they're lying to you. The cuts are coming, and this is what's happening in our communities.
Sure. Republicans voted for a law that's going to implement these automatic cuts, and the only way to possibly stop that is if a different person gets elected who can say, no, we're not going to let this law get implemented with these automatic cuts. So that is actually a pretty compelling message, because the person that voted for these cuts is not going to be a person that's going to stop the cuts. You're going to need a new person in there that then could, with a different makeup on Congress, stop the cuts from actually happening.
Thank you. Zoe Mamdani is going to be here in Washington tomorrow, and Republicans have been saying that Mamdani is going to be a liability for Democrats next year. I know that you guys are trying to focus on the issues and this bill and Medicaid cuts, but they're saying that he's going to be the issue for you in elections next year. Are they wrong?
What I'm more concerned about when you're talking about elections coming up, I'm concerned about, I'm looking at Virginia and New Jersey more than I'm looking at the city of New York City. So that's what I'm interested in looking at. Medicaid will be on the ballot in those gubernatorial elections, and that's what we'll be looking at. But look, broadly, what Assemblymember Mamdani has talked about are the rising costs that people face. I think there's a lesson to be learned there. He's talked about rising grocery costs that people face, bus fares, those types of things. He's not campaigning on impeaching Donald Trump. He's campaigning on reducing costs that people face. And I think there's a lesson for us there too. Cassie?
So I just came back from the House press conference where I pressed Speaker Mike Johnson about disaster relief and the fact that obviously Congress is going to have to take up some sort of package for the next several weeks, whether it be Texas, Carolina, California, and so on. And I asked him if he could guarantee whether or not California would be included in a package if the president doesn't ask for it, since he's inclined not to, since he has some public beef with the governor, and the speaker wouldn't commit to that. So are Democrats as a caucus prepared to potentially face a vote where California is not in a package, and will they reject that and say, disaster rate has always been a bipartisan effort?
Yeah, I mean, that's our underlying message is it shouldn't matter whether you live in a blue state or a red state. If you experience a natural disaster and you need help from the federal government, we should be there to help. That's it. That's the bottom line. Not red states get faster attention and blue states don't, or we don't send help to one and the other. If this speaker wants to be the first speaker in American history to politicize disaster recovery and assistance and to penalize states from another political party of his own, then that might be the legacy he wants to leave. In addition to the legacy of kicking people off of healthcare, that would be unfortunate. But we'll see what happens. But we are committed, and I'll defer to the vice chair as a member of the California delegation as well. We are committed to hold Republicans accountable to this. This is a very simple solution. This isn't about Texas or California or North Carolina or New Mexico. The funds that Congress puts dollars into need to be replenished. There's a series of them, from SBA to FEMA. All of these funds are going to be strapped for cash because of the claims that will be filed. We just need to replenish those funds, irrespective of the claims and where they're coming from. That's it. That's the solution. Replenish the disaster relief fund and the associated counts that respond to disasters. It doesn't matter where people apply. If they meet the qualifications and come from a state that has experienced a disaster, they will apply. And so let's keep the states out of it and just replenish the funds. That's our message to our Republican colleagues. I hope that cooler heads prevail, and I hope that people who pride themselves on supporting this place as an institution meet that moment. I'm concerned that Donald Trump leading this and leading them poses a risk to that. But I hold out hope that they will push back and work with us in a bipartisan way. Vice Chair Lieu.
There are more Republicans living in Southern California than a number of red states. So why would Trump and Republicans want to punish Republicans who happen to live in Southern California? It makes no sense. It's un-American. It's unpatriotic to do disaster relief based on party registration or ideology. I also note that Trump and Republicans are making drastic cuts to organizations like the National Weather Service, that in a time like this, when you're seeing more and more extreme weather events, we actually need more people at the National Weather Service, not less. And I asked Trump Republicans to reverse those devastating cuts.
Question.
With Arizona's special election today, there's 3 seats obviously vacant. Why is it detrimental for Democrats to fill those 3 seats with such a slim majority?
It's important for those seats to be filled because the people who live in those communities deserve representation. And we shouldn't play politics about those special elections and the deadlines like the governor of Texas has done in leaving that seat open vacant, while the governor of Arizona fulfills the requirement to call that election. It's important for these constituents. This isn't about Democrats and Republicans. We'd say the same thing if it came to filling a Republican vacancy. People deserve to be heard. They deserve to have a representative in Congress who's exercising their votes, who's exercising a vote on their behalf. We obviously believe having full strength as we fight against House Republicans and Donald Trump on the reconciliation bill and the appropriations bills around the corner and the government funding deadlines that are looming. We think it's important that we are at full strength. And so we will be comfortable and we will feel better when we have full representation within the Democratic caucus. Thank you.
Thank you.